Pensado's Place is brought to you by
Our guest is one of the all-time greats. We've got a brand new ITL. The endowment announcement's coming up shortly. It'll be next week, but we want you to make sure you vote. You know you're at the place. It's Pensado's Place. Let's do it.
What's up, everybody? Glad to have you back. It's going to be a great show. I'm happy. We got a lot of cool things to go over today. First and foremost, let me wish Phil Ramone a speedy recovery. Phil, we love you. We all stand on your shoulders, and man, get well soon, my friend.
Absolutely.
How about you, Herbert? What have you been up to?
Good week. It's been crazy for us, hasn't it?
Well, that's a normal week. A good week is when it's...
You know, thanks to the blessings of our incredible audience and the gifts that keep being bestowed upon us.
Absolutely.
Looks like we're going to be able to maybe get involved in some good things and bring it back to them, which is...
Well, that's the whole reason we're here. You know, it's our audience is just as cool as they can be, and they've entrusted us with something special, and we'll never let them down.
Well,
we got some big things. You got some big things.
Yeah, the Machiavellian side is certainly going overdrive, but it's their show, and we're just lucky enough to bring it to them. So we certainly have one of the all-time great guys, talents in the business, as well as such a great guy. Why don't we get to the good stuff so we can get to him? What do you think?
Let's do it.
Guys, welcome. Good to see you again. You know, we're coming to you live from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles, from the beautiful HD studio, which stands for...
High definition.
High definition. It's no longer Herb and Dave?
Well, it's Herb, Dave, and Drew.
Oh, it's a new kind of HD, HDD. We do have a returning champ in corner office. We'll get to that.
Returning champ?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to that in a second. You know the social media drill. Look below me. Make sure you like and comment. Again, it's the wind beneath our wings. It helps us so much. Thank you so much for that stuff.
Whoa, the wind beneath our wings?
Yeah, man, because guess what? If it wasn't there, guess what we'd be doing for a living? So, anyways.
Coming up with better cliches. That's what we'd be doing.
So, moving forward, thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Hello to our Vintage King friends. The cable deal is done. However, we've got new promotions that are going to come up pretty quickly from Vintage King. Stay tuned. Good stuff, good opportunity for you there. In the chat room is our buddy Jeff Leibovich. Hey, Jeff, what's happening? Jeff? And do you have a Stump The VK Guy question?
I do. In fact, this is a good one for a change. When and why should I use a linear phase EQ over a regular EQ? And they're notorious for eating up and hogging DSP. Why?
Do you want to read my answer to that? Did I see you? That was hilarious. Well, we may post that as a fun. Anyways, we'll tell you about that. So sometimes I answer Dave's questions.
No, this man, Manny and I were talking earlier. Manny never sleeps. You sleep less than Manny, and I think sometimes you get giddy because he sent me like an email this long that was the funniest email I've ever read.
We may post that.
Pretending like he kind of knew the audio gear, but really didn't know it, so he's making up things. And
We'll post it for you.
Had to have been there.
So you can laugh at it, or we'll put it in a book or something. But make sure we're gonna, as you know, below us, we're gonna have those answers to the Stump the Vintage Guy King question. We again want to make sure you stay tuned, watch Vintage King's website, get back to us. These flash discounts are gonna come up pretty regularly throughout the course of our relationship. Opportunities for you, happy to bring it to you. Our friends at Avid, I gotta tell you guys something. You guys have been so creative with these T-shirts. We're going to keep that going for a while. I just sit at home.
Can I speak about the last thing we looked at?
Yeah, actually, I think they're going to show it.
The little cutout?
Yeah, they're going to show it right now.
Oh, my gosh.
So and here, Will show this. Thomas Mavian of Sweden put together these little figurines that'll make sure your mixes are good. So as you can see, if you need some figurines to help your mixes, Thomas has come up with...
It comes flat and you fold it into that.
And it'll stand on your console. So keep the T-shirts coming. We're going to do more stuff with that and get some rewards to you.
The
Great
one
stuff,
of you
guys.
looks really like you. The one of me doesn't look like me.
It looks like Jeff Bridges.
That's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a huge step up.
Exactly.
Going from Julia Childs to Jeff Bridges is a step up.
And not being able to tell the difference between the two.
my kid told me I look like Julia Childs.
Moving on.
That's so sad.
Indaba, we announced next week. Just sorting through all the entries. Dave is listening. We're going to announce that next week. We're talking about doing some more stuff with them, so it's going to be fun, and we're going to be happy to award some prizes to you guys. Lots of good stuff coming. Why don't you introduce Into the Lair, and let's get it popping.
Okay. This week's Into the Lair has a kind of a big philosophical component, so pay attention as closely as you can to the examples. Don't pay attention to me. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's a good one. You want to run it, Will? From time to time, as a mixer, I run into certain problems that I need to find a solution for. Problem's probably too strong a word, certain concepts. Now, at home sometimes when you're creating a track yourself, you might be faced with the dilemma, do I make this track sound like my favorite records in the 70s? Do I make it sound like it should sound a year from now? Or should I make it be a hybrid, whatever? Well, recently I've been working on some new Earth, Wind & Fire material with my friend Neil Pogue and Larry Dunn and Philip Bailey. And I was facing the problem. I've got these horn parts. The horns are real, they're live, spectacular. I mean, they just give you goosebumps. Do I make them sound like they were from the 70s? Do I make them sound like 2013? What do I do? So I thought it might be instructive to take a look at two situations where, one, I'm trying to make the horns fit a group that's known for 40 years. And then after that, we'll take a look at a situation where we want the horns to sound new and modern and not quite sound like they're older. So let's dive right in and see if we can get this conceptually. Now, this doesn't have to be horns. It can be anything. But let's do horns for now. Okay, this is what I was given. I'm going to play you a little bit longer piece, then we'll focus on a shorter piece. Okay, so my decision now, first of all, what I want to accomplish with the horns within the framework of this song. And I'll play you the whole song in a minute so you can understand a little better what we're doing. But in this particular case, I wanted the horns to kind of be like a guitar part would be in a modern day song. Okay guys, let me show you what I was given. This is on the new Earth, Wind & Fire record. Okay, now this is what I did. So now let's dive in and see why we did it and what we did. So right away we notice that the horns in this song are carrying the weight of a traditional pad sometimes. Sometimes they're carrying a percussive element, a rhythmic element they're imparting to the track. And then sometimes they're like we said earlier, they're occupying the spot that maybe a guitar would occupy, a heavy sounding guitar would occupy. So in keeping with that thought process, let me show you what I decided to do. I did some heavy lifting with a channel strip. I tried a couple of things, and like the way life always works, this kind of gave me what I wanted. Okay, here's with it. Automatically we've picked the energy up a little bit. So now I wanted to get a modern vibe. I experimented with a bunch of stuff, and I like this CLA plugin, which there again keeps in line with our philosophy of whatever works. So here's what we had with only the channel strip in. Here's with the Chris Lord-Alge plug-in. So throwing a little guitar vibe on it kind of gave it a guitar vibe. And then what I did here is this is just some little finishing touches to make it fit in the mix. So you just heard without it, this is with it. And then my new buddy, this clariphonic plug-in, basically what I'm doing is I'm adding some 800 or so here, and then I'm adding a little bit of 10K here, just to get the final modern touch to it. Okay, so let's check it without it. With it. Gives it a little bit of a polish, modernizes it, and then just a little basic compressor thing here. So now let's listen to the whole bad boy. Well, you know what? We've already listened to it. Let's check it out in the track. Okay, that's the percussive part. Here's the pad part. Now we've got the opposite situation or problem, if you will. We've got a really modern song. I played this for you once or twice before. I love this song. It's Casey Jones, produced by Jesse Owen Aston, I think is the way he pronounces it. Up-and-coming producer, really cool stuff. Here's inside the track what I did. Okay, if you'll notice, right off the bat, I don't need as much effects. Different era, different time. And then also you'll notice different EQ. Like the EQ isn't designed to make it be totally in my face. It's designed to, everything's designed to make this a part of the track. You could almost say that the fact that they were live isn't as important as the harmonic content, the notes they're playing, and the rhythmic part. It's there because the artist is, this particular artist has an alternative side to her, a pop side to her. She's got an artistic side to her. So these horns are there to kind of put these elements in her personality and writing style into the track. So we're not trying to overwhelm the track. We're not trying to make it sound like something from the 70s. We're trying to give an emotional feeling that I just described. So let me show you what I did. Okay, here's what I was given. Okay, here again, the channel strip just gave me a grain, an edge I kind of like. So here's with the channel strip. Without it. Okay, I'm in the red because I'm actually knocking off some level with a compressor, but I'll show you that last. What did we do? We added a little bit of super top, clear it up, a little more clarity, find it. Then here's some of our new, more modern frequencies we're playing with. 3K, 700, a little bit of low end. It's okay. We've got the spot for all of that. Now, all I'm doing is a little bit of limiting. A little bit of compression, a little bit of limiting to make it sit in the track. Now we don't want a whole lot of effects. I'm using a modern reverb, not a classic reverb, but I'm also using a little bit of classic reverb. So you can see once we get all these elements and we get our philosophy first, that's where you always start. You got to know where you're going before you jump in the car. Now let's see if all that's paying off. Don't listen for the sound of the horns. Just listen for what they make you feel and how they sit in the track. so they mirror the tom feel rhythmically in one spot. They become percussive, and then they become a little synth part in the little longer notes. So what have we learned today? Listen to the part, listen to the song, listen to the instrument, the type of part it is, and then figure out what it needs to do within the context of the song, the production, the emotional feeling, all of those things we discussed earlier, and let that be your roadmap and your guideline on how to proceed once you start mixing. And this concept should be applied to everything in the mix, not just horn parts. Okay?
Boy, what a pleasure. I know you got good stuff from that ITL, and make sure you go back and review it. And Dave's available if you have questions and all that kind of stuff. On to one of our favorite guests by far. This guy is not only a giant as a talent, he's a giant as a human being. Let me just point out a real quick thing. If you go to his website and his discography, the breadth and diversity of the acts that he does and does consistently well, and he'll talk about it, are just incredible. You know, he'll go from fun to Nas, from Alicia Keys to Linkin Park, from Bieber to Rolling Stone, Emily Sandé to Rihanna, CeeLo. Absolutely incredible. Please welcome to our desk the incredible Manny Marroquin. How are you, man?
Hey, guys.
Thank you, Manny. Thanks so much for coming by, man.
Thank you for having me.
We're sort of giddy that you're here. Beyond the fact that there's a relationship that goes back with you guys, back to before you were an engineer, right?
Absolutely.
How did all that start?
Man, you know, I was in high school and I wanted to shadow, and there was a studio called Music Animals.
Yeah.
And Dave was there, and you were doing remixes and stuff, and he was basically the first engineer I ever met. I think I was 17.
And still you continued on. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, yeah. It was so good because after high school I'd go and shadow these guys. You know, and that was when I met Dave, and Dave was always incredible, always a teacher, always wanting to share the knowledge.
You were doing Pensado's Place back before
then.
Pensado's Place.
Yeah. So this show for me is like, oh yeah, well this is you guys. This is,
A quick aside, he's reciprocated. There's, I preach the necessity of having a team and a friend base around you, because our profession is like this, and sometimes I get in some deep valleys emotionally, and Manny's always been there for me.
Yeah,
I mean, from day one. He'd been engineering a week, and he was more mature than me. I mean, it was pretty clear cut. And, you know, on air, thanks for always being there for me.
Yeah,
I can call him anytime of day. He never sleeps, so he's been an inspiration to me way more than I've been an inspiration.
I refer to how good of a guy he is, and it stands out so much. Take us a little bit, this diversity that you have. Is that easy to do? How do you
You know,
do
that was from earlier on. I remember telling my manager, saying, look, let's do this project, and of course, him being the good manager that he is, it's like, oh, you're gonna have to pay them to work with them. They're not gonna pay you. You're not gonna make any money. And I remember being 24, 23, 24, thinking, you know, it doesn't matter. But you know, what matters is it's gonna look good on my discography. And I just don't want to be pigeonholed, because I'm just, you know, came from a musical background. I played since I was a little kid. So I was a fan of all, you know, I grew up with like the hip hop community, but then I used to play drums and play rock. So for me music to me was just a passion. And I never wanted to be the guy that just did one thing. I just wanted to be doing stuff that I liked. And I didn't necessarily listen to one genre. So when the iPod generation came on board, that was, for me, it was perfect timing. It was just perfect timing that now you had the skaters listening to Metallica and the rockers listening to, you know, Kanye or stuff like. So it was just perfect timing to be able to, and studying, you know, I'm again, first and foremost a music fan. So I listen to it all. I just don't discriminate, really. So and I think that's helped, you know.
And being incredible at what he does helps.
Plus, I'm gonna throw this in. I don't think I've ever talked with Manny about this, but when you work as an engineer based on your feelings, your emotion, your taste, your experiences, the good times and the bad times from your childhood, the background. Types of music and genre are irrelevant, because music is designed to soothe all of those things in a person. You know, Manny, and it's like Your records have your personality and your emotion in them. So that works for any genre, right?
Yeah, that means a lot coming from you for sure.
But you know, one of the things that would be inspirational to our audience before we start breaking down this Linkin Park song, in some ways you've got a classic entry into the world of engineering. Engineer didn't show up or got sick. You did the mix. It was incredible.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I think those cats, you still work for them now.
Well, you know, it's the classic story. The guy, you know, it's very demanding industry, and at 4 in the morning after being there 14, 15 hours, the guy wants to go home, and there's the next guy that's hungry and jumps on board and jumps on the hot seat.
But you were ready. You were good.
I thought I was. You know, I was mixing a lot of foreign records when I was 19, 20, and I think that kind of prepared because no one heard all my mistakes. So it kind of helped me out when, you know, a client that was signed to a major label came and said, hey, throw a rough mix. And I thought I was prepared, but you know, it was just based on, hey, throw the faders up, see what happens, just start messing with it.
Had you tracked it?
No, I had not tracked it.
Oh, that even makes it even harder.
Yeah. So I didn't know the song until that day when the guy shows up.
Something that we might toss in here, kind of a political nature, Herb, you can jump in on this one, but you went to Hamilton High School, which had the way you describe it to me, it didn't sound like a studio, but it sounded like enough to where you could get your feet wet. And that was the foundation upon which you built your career. And then from there, you weaseled your way into a studio. Your teacher said you just go in and get work in a studio any possible way. But it all started with music in the schools, and let's the three of us just toss out there to the world that we got to do something about this. Some of the executives and some of the school board members can take a cut and pay. Let's get some music in the schools again. Without that, everything doesn't work without that.
I'm a product of that. Without Hamilton, who knows what I'd be doing. But it was a special environment. I think it was sort of a test and see if they could keep inner city kids in school if they had something to go,
Absolutely.
And for us, it was an open campus, so we could have gone to the beach every day if we wanted to. And we went to school from 8 till almost 5, and it was all, they had a mini studio, a MIDI studio there with SMPTE track, Atari 1040 back in the day. But I realized I wasn't going to be a drummer even before the first day of school, because we were auditioning, and we were all in line, and I could hear this guy play drums, and I've never heard anything like that in my life. And this guy was just killing it. And I'm like, well, I'll never be that good. Oh man, what am I gonna do here? I need to rethink this. And it happened to be Abe Laboriel Jr.
Oh no!
Wow. So
You never told me that.
Abe, if you're watching, you're the reason why I'm mixing.
I'll be darned.
I was so heartbroken. And then David Sears, which is a true mentor for me, he very instrumental in my career, said, we have a music studio. You want to get into it? And that's kind of how I got into it. They had a Ramsa 32x8, a reel-to-reel, and just started recording bands and mixing them. I didn't even know what mixing was. All I knew that at that point, the power we have over levels and EQs and compressors, and you're able to do create an emotion based on electronics. I mean, that's pretty powerful.
That's right.
And that's why people follow guys like Pensado, because there's something beautiful.
Do you think people with Latin blood in their veins just make better engineers? I think that's true.
Yes.
I agree.
Not so quick, gringo. Let's jump into Linkin Park, man. Yeah. I just can't stop listening to Burn It Down. In fact, the whole record, you did the whole new record, and Burn It Down, it just has all the songs on that record, but I just keep listening to that record because it's just so you know. How did you take, that was a smooth segue, wasn't it? How did you take a bunch of pretty sounds and make them work in the context of a Linkin Park record? Like it starts off with those sounds, but then you dicked with them, and they're just like,
Yeah. Man, I got to thank the guys, Mike Shinoda and the band, and Brad. I mean, those guys are really good. Rick Rubin. I mean, I'm just blessed to be in good company. So my job was not to screw it up. So it was good. I think we tried a few things, different snare sounds. We knew it was the first single, so we spent some time on it. And Rob Cavallo chimed in. So you had a lot of people involved. And I think the key for that project was to make sure that we took Rob, Rick, the band, Mike, and get all their ideas into one place. And I think the challenge was that, where we had the sounds were there, we're adding a little bit of distortion here and there, maybe lots of dynamics. It's gonna we know that it's going to be a single, so we wanted to impact those hooks. When those hooks came in, we wanted to make sure that, hey, Linkin Park 2012 was here.
Absolutely.
So it was a lot of filtering going on in that song, like within tracks. And this is something that Mike was doing already, and I just sort of ran with that. Where
filtering, you mean like high
just
and low
filtering,
pass?
like low and high pass in the verses on certain keyboards, so that they would be fuller in the choruses. So there's not a lot of rides as some other songs that I would mix, but there's a lot of filtering, and thank you, Mike. But he, I discovered, even almost doing this 20 years, I discovered the art of filtering.
That happened to me too recently, about a year ago. Speaking of the guitars, or were you speaking of the guitars?
A little bit.
Okay. There's an extra distortion on what sometimes sounds like a guitar, and sometimes it sounds more synthy, but there's a new plug-in out by one of my favorite engineers called Manny Marroquin. Did you use your distortion plug-in on that?
Yes. It was a very early stages of the distortion plug-in. I don't even think the guys knew I was messing with it on their tracks. But yeah, a lot of it was just trying to play around with this. I always wanted a distortion plug-in that would be just cool to use musical. I feel like that's really hard to find as plugins. There's a couple of them out there that can do a good job.
I'm blessed, and thank you for sending it to me. I've been playing with all your plugins, all 6 of them. We'll get into that for you guys. I know everybody I know is asking about his plugin, But that one is so musical, man. It's like it's really good. And then the vocal, the delay and the reverb on the lead vocal. You and I've been close forever, and I still can't get accustomed to hearing that many effects on one of your vocals. But it really sounded great. Do you kind of remember what you did on that vocal?
It's funny because on some of the Alicia records that we had mixed earlier, I remember being really dry. And very dry, more about width and not so much depth.
And then you and I came up during the hip hop era when everything was dry.
It was dry, yeah. And the key, it was almost harder to mix those records because there's a lot of room for error, and you can hear it. So I was used to being just bone dry, but with EQing and compression, how do we make it sound big, full, and wide at the same time without using effects? So then Alicia just wanted wetness. She's like, I want to swim. I want a whole different vibe. And we started experimenting with a lot of like quarter note on one side and dotted eighths on the other, and sending them to a bunch of reverb and EQ on the reverb, and just a lot of experimentation with that. And I feel like that kind of leaked over to the Linkin Park, because that's kind of what they were doing a little bit. But it was just, hey, let's see how far we can take it.
Yours is tasteful and musical. It doesn't, like the reason I'm telling this to our audience, the reason that we didn't use reverb is because it made the rappers sound like they were a step back, and the whole point of rap is hearing the rap. So, but you kept him right in the front of the mix. Were you using your Echoplex, the tube one on that?
A lot of it was that, funny enough. And, a lot of parallel compression on it, too, and different sections with, verses had a little bit of a different parallel compression than the choruses, different effects in the choruses.
What compressor do you use for the parallel side?
Distressor.
Oh.
Yeah, to send it to the distressor, and just the meters wouldn't move, And then you EQ on the SSL, EQ the return. But the effects were more of we wanted the chorus to be a wall of sound. So then you said it best.
The choruses, look here, Herb, I got the choruses are huge. It's like, they weren't stacked that much.
No,
and they're still huge.
Yeah, it's just
Were you using spatial stuff?
Some spatial stuff, yes. But spatial stuff is can be tricky because then it goes out of phase and the energy actually goes away. You know, so if you use a little too much, then your middle disappears, and for some reason it just goes away. So it's tricky. You know, it's, again, the beauty of what we do is it's just art. You know, it's like cooking. It's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, take away this, and experimenting with the doubles that, you know, Mike was, you know, or Chester on the lead, experimenting how we cue the doubles, if we make them fuller in the choruses or do they become muddy. You said, Dave, with delays and reverbs, usually that it goes away, which is the depth that we sometimes look for. So how do we make it forward and then add? Yeah, so that was the challenge. And I think a lot of the parallel compression helps when you automate it or lots of rides.
You automate your parallel compression?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I only use it in the choruses, sometimes just the verses.
I never do that. Should I be doing that?
Sure.
Okay.
No rules, man.
One of the things that struck me about that song, before we move on to the Bruno Mars song, is your effects sounded like they had a plan. They weren't just, okay, I need reverb on this vocal. The effects, either you used the same reverb and the same delay on everything, which I know you didn't, of course, or you had a plan. And if you didn't have a plan, after you used the second reverb, you came with a plan. Can you explain to our audience how a guy like you thinks about effects, and not just because you're supposed to, but how they work within the context of a mix, what you're trying to do? Because you, better than just about anybody I know, your effects don't exist because you're supposed to or because the last song did it. They have they sound like part of an overall plan to me, which is something I'm still struggling with.
You know, it's a good point because different artists, you know, call for different, you know, we talked about genres. For example, like Lana Del Rey. Like if you listen to her stuff, she swims. And it's almost, at the time when you're doing it, it's like, wow, this is way too much. But you always got to, at least for me, I remember, wait, what's the picture? What are we trying to tell here? And luckily nowadays, we have some good, better than others, these roughs. And some of these roughs tell you, okay, this is what we're going for. Then you may strip all of it and do your own version, or you may keep some of it and add to it, or you may keep it and EQ it, or compress it, or parallel, whatever you do. But luckily nowadays, they give us sort of they give us a schematic of, hey, this is what the house is going to look like. Now kind of help build it. For some, like Linkin Park, they kind of gave me their vision, and I honestly just ran with it. Sometimes there was too much reverb, sometimes not enough. And again, I'm big on sections. Like if the verse has this, maybe the chorus. On a song like a Linkin Park song, I wouldn't necessarily do that with an Alicia track, but on a Linkin Park song, there's a lot of dynamics that need to be, like you said, the hooks sound big. So I always think of the section that's coming after that. So if I'm on the verse, I'm thinking of the chorus. If I'm in the chorus, I'm thinking, because it's setting me up to what can I do EQ-wise, level-wise, to set me up for the next section. And of course, you need to have dynamics. Verses need to breathe a little bit. Choruses on a track like that need to just get big. We need the second verse to come down, maybe not as down as the first one, but still keeping the energy. And to me, the hardest section is going from your first chorus to your second verse, because now you've established that first chorus. It's not your peak, but it's up there. And how do you how do you go to the second verse without losing that energy? And again, energy could be EQ, so maybe it's not a level thing. Maybe whatever synth you have in the second verse is a matter of EQing some mid and not necessarily bringing it up to make it muddy or space, and so that still you have a perception of energy, but not space, filling up space.
I said Bruno Mars. Let's move to Radioactive, the Imagine Dragons mix. That whole record is pretty spectacular. Here again, the background vocals on that sound huge without a stack. What did you do different in this song to get those huge?
Well, again, man, being surrounded with great talent. The band is incredible. Alex the Kid, the guy is one of the most talented producers out there.
No doubt.
And what he gave me was, Dan the singer. They, how they stack the gang vocal, and I hear it on so many records nowadays where they just I mean, it came stacked. So
It
all I
doesn't sound
had.
like a big stack, though.
Oh yeah, but it's the way it's sort of blended in with the rest of the track. I mean, that's to me one of my favorite tracks. Radioactive.
That breakdown is.
It's just so massive and it's so wrong. You know, it's like really wrong, but yet it feels right. And I remember when Alex first played it for me, and actually Dan was there too, and the band was there, and I remember first hearing it, going, "Oh my goodness!"
Was the
this
kick
is gonna
like
be.
that, or did
the
you
kick
add
was
that
big,
effect?
but the kick was good. But again, I did a little bit of parallel and sending it to a couple of things like a Neve, and I think maybe even a stay level. So I can't remember exactly what it was, but the kick, the stuff was there. I just sort of put some steroids into it so that it would just be massive. And the whole thing with that track, the content, the lyrical content, the way they blew up with its time, and it's a new band, and we wanted to just kind of just slap somebody when they first heard it, and that was the intention. At least that's what I got when I first heard it.
I got slapped.
Did you like
the
it?
lead vocal on that, the John Legend vocal. I just love that vocal. I never can remember the damn song because I never listened to the chorus because I love the vocal. But this vocal reminded me a little bit about that. Did you actually roll off some of the top and some of the bottom? It felt like you kind of got rid of everything below 300 and everything above about 12K. Did you?
The song, I didn't have to do so much of that because the song, if you listen to it on a good system, it's got the sub in that song is just
incredible,
big, and then the top is there as well. So I didn't have to do a lot of shelving on that. It may be the perception of that because there's so much. It's this, but I usually just with vocals, anything below like 100. I mean, really, we just don't.
I go that low.
Yeah,
too.
we don't hear it.
But do you ever match the top end of the vocal to, like, say, the hi-hat or the shakers, or do you match the shakers and hi-hat to the vocal?
Yeah, we've always talked about this, where I feel like everything has to be connected. And different genres. Funny, we talk about different genres. Some genres need a little more glue, and others you need separation. Like I remember some of the hip hop records. I needed a lot of separation. I didn't want my kick to be married with my snare. I wanted them to touch, just do that much so that they're still living in the same room. But with some of the alternative records and some of the rock records, you want more of this. You want that glue, and you want the connection.
There's a low-mid massiveness in the Linkin Park and in the Dragons record. We just can't get in hip hop records.
Yeah.
That's a conscious effort. That
Absolutely.
like 4, 5, 600.
Absolutely. I figure if I'm going to attempt to mix an alternative record or rock record, I got to give a little bit of that Tabasco.
Yeah, of course.
You got to give it a little bit of booty and just knock it out.
At some point, you just got to say that's why they hired me. I guess they got a history.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise you're gonna get some low end for free.
A couple minutes of Batter's Box. Why don't you ask about Bruno Mars?
Okay, on the Bruno Mars song, let's discuss the one you want to.
Locked Out of Heaven?
Yeah, let's just start with that.
How big of a hit is that?
Yeah, man. And listen, let's talk about Bruno Mars too. I mean, the guy is
ridiculous talent.
It's one of the most talented artists, hands down, right now.
But that record seems to be like everything that got you to this point in your career seems to have a use in that record because of the way he approaches music. Like a one-dimensional mixer couldn't mix that record.
I'm not sure. I'd never really think about stuff like that, but. That song was interesting because when he came in right before we mixed the album, he played me the album, and I thought, like, wow, this is really, really, really good. It was all over the place, but it was really solid. And Locked Out of Heaven, was the first song we mixed, and I felt like, okay, this is Bruno Mars. People are getting to know him. What can we do? What can I do to bring something to the table? And I thought, well, we need to take chances here. We need to push the envelope, whether he likes it or not, and I hope he likes it, but let me try something that I've never done before. And I experimented a lot, probably more on that track than any other track I've ever mixed. Only because if you're familiar with the song, I mean, there's really 3 songs or 3 sounds in one, and to make them all like cohesive, it's not that easy, because you have I mean, there's a lot of tracks. There's drum loops, 808s, kicks, bass. You know, the bass. You know, Jeff Basker did. He's got this massive bass sound, and you got the drums from, you know, from like a sort of like a retro feel, and you have the Sting influence, of course, or the Police influence. So trying to have that record just grow, and then it explode. I gotta say it's a challenge, and I couldn't do it just mixing it like I would mix other records. So it was a lot of, you know, popping compressors in on the 2-bus, you know, which I don't tend to do that.
Popping compressors in.
You know, like if I want this section to be more glue.
So you can use different.
Yes, compression in each section.
Oh, newsflash! Whoa, that's the price of admission right there.
No doubt about it.
So you actually use different compressors on the stereo bus for different.
Yes.
Holy
and
crap!
I've kind of never done
That's
that.
cool, ain't it, Drew? Did you know that?
Automation on the bypass? Or you automate the bypass kind of thing?
you just simply bypass it, you know, and play with the settings. Now
Can
the
you give me an example of like a
quick example. If you have an SSL compressor on the plug-in on your stereo bus, and you want the bridge to be whatever it is that you want it to be, you just bypass it in the bridge, and then you start playing with all your attacks, releases, and whatever feels good. If you feel like it needs to release more, if it needs to be a little more glue, so your next section is open, and you know, and the levels, it's really tricky. One thing I found is you really got to be careful doing it. But if it's done right, then you get that effect from like Locked Out of Heaven, where you're like, wow, it's got these emotional pieces that all sound kind of glued in. And
But I wonder if we should caution her. Don't try this at home. This is dangerous. I mean,
it is very dangerous.
Things could explode. I mean,
no.
This is heresy stuff.
It's probably so dangerous that I probably shouldn't have brought it up because you could really screw up a mix. You could really screw something up.
Just a word to the world: don't hire me for the next 20 mixes because there's a high possibility I might screw them up. But I got Drew. Drew can take over there for me. Man, that's kind of neat. I've been experimenting with parallel compressing on the stereo bus and mixing that in and out for different sections. But that's
kind of like
cool.
the same sort of concept, but doing it across the stereo bus. Again, it's tricky. It doesn't always work. I've done it and I screwed it up a few times, and then luckily have gone back and said, no.
But you know what's so cool is that your stature, your place, allows somebody to give you that shot to just go be a madman. And then it turns out it's like...
At Manny's level, sometimes the tendency is for an engineer to play it safe and maintain what you've done over the past 3 or 4 years, but to tie this in one big neat bow, he's maintained longevity and credibility by always growing, but not just growing at the pace that the music he's given is growing, he's growing ahead of it.
Yeah, he steps off the cliff.
So instead of waiting to be told what to do, he leads the pack. Like,
tee up batter's box.
Can I come every day now?
No, absolutely.
Can I come?
That's what we do.
I'll just hang in the corner.
That's
host the
absolutely,
show.
man. Absolutely.
place.
No question.
You guys are so nice.
Loosen up that arm, bud. It's batter's box time.
oh my gosh, that was a fast 30 minutes.
Yep.
All right, Manolo, you ready?
Ready or not?
Okay.
away.
Let's do it.
Roads.
I love putting an H3000 H3000 harmonizer.
Okay, I got a question later. Radio, telephone, vocal sound.
SSL board, man.
Really?
Yep. I just go good old-fashioned EQ the crap out of it till it sounds like a radio. And of course, some compression and EQ on the board.
I kind of like that Manny Marroquin distortion plug-in on mine, but lead vocals.
I'm going to be like everybody else that you've had on the show and say 1176.
Well, I'm not. When you guys finally get his EQ, the high-end knob is like, oh my God, I've tried for years to sound like Manny on the high end, and it's just right there on that knob on his new EQ. Reverb.
Bricasti, man. Yeah.
And here again, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but his reverb plug-in, I got my Bricasti sitting there, and I don't know. You guys
some sort of check exchange here.
No, he doesn't know. He doesn't know anything about this. It's just I've been playing with these plugins for. I don't want to jump the gun. They're going to be out in a little bit. Kick,
man, 1073. That's just, I think I've used the 1073 on 80% of my mixes.
What do you set the low end button on?
I don't even look at it as behind me. I just go between 60, 110, whatever,
I think he's lying.
Whatever it's set to. I just
You've been in his room. What does he do, Drew?
I'll tell you later.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you.
Snare.
Snare. I love the Avalon 2044 for the smack. And
really?
yeah.
Wow. I knew that. Bass synth.
If it's a stereo bass synth, I love parallel compressing it to a Pultec and a Neve, either 33609 or an SSL.
You don't use a stay level on the bass?
I do, if it's mono. That's what.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
The lowly hi-hat.
The lowly hi-hat.
Nobody ever pays attention to hi-hats but you and I and
yeah.
Shakira.
Yeah, right. Add some mid to those hi-hats, man. Either they're way too bright or not pressing, I'm lately I've been into adding mids, like low mids and just more like chesty than, up here.
Lately I'm adding low mids to everything, including my pancakes. Your island piece of gear.
Something I can do a lot with, I would have to say a Quad 8, a Quad 8 EQ, because those are probably some of the most musical EQs out there. And you can do a lot with it, and even if you take all your mids out, you can do a lot for an EQ. I know most people will probably say 1073 and don't get great piece, but man, those Quad 8s are just some of my favorites.
They're getting hard to find, too.
Yeah.
There's a retro version of that, though. And then lastly and not leastly, you and I both use a lot of gear. We both have a lot of expensive gear, but we both have a lot of cheap gear. Your favorite piece of gear under $500 that you use the most often? It can be a guitar pedal. It can be a eBay special.
Wow, yeah, let's see. You got me there.
He has no cheap equipment.
I have
we
no
all
cheap
do.
equipment.
Well, less
I have to
expensive.
say, I would have to say a couple pedals. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. Yeah,
We
like
all use guitar pedals.
Yeah.
Well, man, I think I'm a concede, Herb. I think he beat me.
Yeah, he's rounded the bases twice. His first double.
I wouldn't go
home run
that
we've
far,
had.
big boy.
Well, I am. I'm the judge. So you have no choice in it. But guess who we have? We have a returning champion in the corner office.
know.
He's back from his world tour. He's appearing at the Silver Fox Gentlemen's Club tonight in L.A. Welcome the originator, Drew Adams, in the corner office.
What's up,
Good to see you,
people?
Drew.
Good to see you guys.
All right,
Good to see you guys.
All right.
Manolo.
You got some questions for Manny?
I do. I'm going to steal a quick question, and also Chris Plotter's watching. Says hey to both of you guys.
Oh, Chris.
Yeah.
We love Chris.
Chris is a long-standing
Chris
assistant.
is an inspiration to
Fire
all
away
of us.
there, sir.
Cool, man. All right, I'm stealing my question real quick. Workflow, because you're in a position where you got a lot of songs to pick from. Do you decide based on your moods, newly discovered kind of like mixing techniques, or is it stick to the script, business management kind of thing?
Good question.
Or label or artist?
Again, music fan first. I look at what's in front of me. I get inspired by it. Is it this type? What type of song is it? Does it require dynamics? Does it require just L2 flatlined, mix? Once I've determined that, then it's just about techniques on how to achieve that. If it's a pop hit, nowadays, and you want it to just be here, then there's tools for that. If it's there's a band I'm working with, Portugal the Man, where there's a lot of dynamics, and Danger Mouse produced it, and there's lots of dynamics, but yet it's got hit hard. And what I try to do is, hey, what is this song saying? I'm all about the song, and then the tools that we have kick in. But what does the song need to do? And that's really the approach.
A rule that our audience should learn and follow.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Drew, tee up another one.
Cool. From Colin Fitchman, how can tracking engineers demonstrate to major artists they are worthy of mixing their projects if we only have a 2-track to work off of 99% of the time? How can I transition from mixing only independents, even though majors trust me for tracking?
That's tough. I mean, that's one of the biggest jump. That was a tough jump for, I think, all of us. Yeah. I say you just got to keep. You have to keep doing. David Sears said to me, always remember what you were hired to do, right? So if you were hired to be a tracking engineer, be the best tracking engineer, because if you want to mix eventually, people are going to know that your work ethic and your chops and your heart, everything's in there, and they're going to want to mix. They're going to want to mix with you eventually, and just patience is probably the hardest thing to have in this industry, because we have to be ambitious, but at the same time, over ambitious can get you in trouble as well. So balancing ambition and
that's critical statement.
And
over ambition. Yeah. Oh gosh, I had a great train of thought.
Hold it.
Great
Drew,
question,
fire
Kyle.
I got you. From Philo, I'm too edgy. Shout out to Dave and Herb for a great show. Your program is reaching all the way to Manny's native Guatemala.
Yeah.
A question for Manny. Manny, when I had the honor of meeting you in Guatemala in 2011, you stressed that a mixer had to be confident about his vision of a mix. When I heard Doom and Gloom by the Rolling Stones, I was amazed by the size of Charlie Watts' kick drum.
First time ever anybody was amazed by his kick drum.
On that track, it had never been so big on a Stones track. Was that asked for, or was that you having the confidence that you talked about?
Great question.
Yeah, great question. I think confidence is everything. And there's a fine line of confidence and cockiness, right? So you have to be confident enough to know that you're the best mixer, but humble enough to know that you still got to learn. And we all learn every single mix that we ever do. So that's another really, balance that we got to keep in mind. With Charlie, man, he's honestly, he's one of my favorite drummers, because he's so solid and it's all about the beat. And for me, it was like working with the Stones, and thank you, Jeff Basker and Don Was, for giving me that opportunity. I always thought, man, Charlie would be great to have a little booty on the kick. So to me, that was like I kept sneaking it in little by little so that they wouldn't be shocked. Every mix I would send out, there was a little more. And so they would be like, oh, whoa, hang on, what? This is a hip hop record. Go back. So
one more quick one.
Let me toss in some real quick. Philo, is it Philo?
Philo, I'm too edgy.
Always remember that as a mix engineer, when we're hired for our ideas, and we're hired for our mix ideas. So always try and give the client more ideas to choose from than they need. Now, don't get an attitude when they reject one. Just keep the atmosphere and move on. But Manny had an idea. He presented it to the room, presented it to Charlie, and now he's got the respect of a client, knowing that he's a contributor to the process, not just a simple mix engineer. So
great advice, David. Really quick, Drew, one last one before we say goodbye.
From Arizona, Stoneheart. Although mix engineers face many problems to solve on a daily basis, what do you find most challenging still today? And what advice would you give novice engineers? And what is the best mixing advice you ever got?
Holy cow, that's a course.
A loaded
That's
question.
like a 5-minute answer.
No doubt.
Man, listen, the biggest challenge, there's a few of them. One is getting the tracks right. And that's why I got my great assistants, Chris and Del, that go through everything and make sure everything's cleaned up. The art of engineering is, I wouldn't say it's lost, but it needs help. And we need to inspire young engineers to want, and that's why shows like this, and congrats to both of you guys for having such an incredible show. Thanks, and you guys are really inspiring so many people and reaching Guatemala. You guys are really inspiring. I think that having these engineers know how to properly record and how to properly file management helps a lot. Now, when I get it on the board, the biggest challenge is our job is simple, is to get that song across, whatever it is, whether the emotion too, whether it's you want to cry, tap your foot, whatever it is. The biggest challenge is to get it to sound what the song really is supposed to be in an ego-driven industry, from different sources, whether it's producers, artists, A&Rs, labels, doesn't matter. And finding the balance between all of them and the art form and delegating all those different ideas and putting them into one and still giving a little piece of you, it could be overwhelming. And I have to say that probably may be one of the biggest challenges.
Can anybody be a mix engineer? I say no. I think there's certain personalities that lend themselves to this process and certain ones that probably aren't going to do as well as others. Yeah. Maybe they should find another area of music.
Absolutely. I would think it's like being a basketball player. Just because you're tall doesn't mean you're going to be a good basketball player. You may have potential. I think I've seen a lot of younger cats have the potential, and I think it's got to be an instinct too. And it's tough because you got to follow your instinct, but then if you have a weak moment, then your instinct, you second guess your instinct, you can't do that. But again, that balance again of being confident and overconfident is really, it's tricky.
Yeah, it can get you in trouble.
Really tricky.
You know, when you look in your phone, you're going to see that I scheduled you to come back quicker than a year.
It's been 2 years.
Yeah, it's been way too long. That's what it's been. You guys were talking about can anybody engineer? And part of it from a manager standpoint is there's the technical side, there's the instinctive side, there's the humanity of it, you're a psychologist, you're seeing the intersection of lots of different people. And you are just one of the best. And part of what makes you one of the best is you've never lost being just a great guy. I think it comes through in all you do and who you talk to.
Thank you.
We are honored by your presence. We're asking you back. It's already yes. You don't have a choice. Thanks, bro.
Well, listen, I just want to take this opportunity. Thank you guys for having me. Of course, I'm humbled by being on the show.
Our pleasure.
I want to thank Mike Fratis at Waves. I want to thank him for his patience with these plugins. And I also want to thank Chris Gallen and Eric that helped me out a lot. And just, even though I get to come up here and talk about the stuff I love, there's always a team behind you that helps you out a lot. And I just want to thank all my guys, Velbert as well. So
couldn't be better. Dave, take us home.
Okay, guys. A little bit serious. I'm touched. We heard from a gentleman from Guatemala. Yesterday I had a Korean artist drop by the studio, and her name is Ji-yoon. She's part of a group called 4 Minute, huge in the Asian world. No longer do we just sit in our little cave and work on one little song for a group out of Burbank. This is a worldwide thing. You guys come from all over the world. It's a responsibility and a pleasure that we do this for a living, and it's been a humbling day. Manny symbolically represents all that's good about what we do, and when I met him, I was coming up too. Even though I'd been doing it for a while, I'd been doing it in Atlanta. So we kind of grew up together, and it's great to see his skill level and to still learn from him, and to have his friendship as part of my circle of friends. So we got a lot in real quick today. Watch it again and plan out some questions for the next time Manny's on the show. We'll see you.